It's time for our next speaker, Michael Turco, and he will speak to us. Stop. About subsidence in Houston area. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here with you today, and certainly glad we're able to make this happen. I know we've been looking forward to it for several years. So thanks for having us. At the Houston area, we've been doing and dealing with subsidence for quite some time. And what I'm going to talk to you today is a little bit about the type of subsidence and the mechanisms that we have in the Houston area and the Gulf Coast aquifer that we utilize for our groundwater resources. And then our unique approach to regulating groundwater there and some of the results that we've seen so far. And the short answer is that there's no free lunch in our area. We're not done. We got more work to do, but we're working to the end. So a little bit about the Subsidence District. We were created in 1975 by the Texas legislature to prevent subsidence within the Houston region, primarily Harris and Galveston County. We do that through the regulation of groundwater withdrawal. So we're a regulatory agency, and we prevent, or actually we move folks off of what their historical water supply was, which is groundwater, onto an alternative source of water, which in our area is primarily treated surface water. We have a broad program that obviously includes a regulatory program that has regulations and planning and compliance, but also a scientific research arm and a water conservation group that also works to help promote efficiency of our water resources in our area. It's very interesting in Houston. We get about 50 inches of rainfall a year. It's like 125 centimeters, something like that. So it's a lot of rainfall that we get in Houston. So when we talk to folks about being efficient with their water, they kind of look at us a little bit weird because we have lots of water laying around. But it's really that utilization of groundwater that causes us the problem in our area. The mechanism for subsidence in our area is one that you're all familiar with. We're talking about deep compaction, inelastic compaction in our aquifer system. We do have some elastic component at the surface, but that just really cracks the driveways and the sidewalks in our area. Not much we can do about that. We're focused about the deep part that occurs primarily from municipal and industrial supply in our area. Most of the agricultural use in the Houston area has long since gone the way of development to urban areas, and now we're looking at this confined aquifer system, depressurization and compaction of the clays. Our aquifer system consists of an interbedded sand, silty sand and clay. It's a transgressive, regressive environment that we've seen near the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of this creates an accretionary wedge that can be very thick near the coast, upwards of, 5,000 meters or so. But when you go, the area that's being developed for groundwater for municipal supply is typically that top 700 meters in the system. And there's two primary water-bearing units that we utilize in our area. The Chico and the Evangeline have been reclassified by the U.S. Geological Survey into this shallow, undifferentiated system. It's basically always been in direct contact with each other. So that's where all the water, most all of the water in Houston comes from. And then there's a deeper system called the Jasper Aquifer. They're all Miocene sediments. They're all generally about the same. Clay content, clay percentages are about the same throughout the area. It's homogeneous in its heterogeneity, equally reworked and messed up everywhere. So when you look at that and the complexity that it shows in our subsidence field is pretty interesting. And we look at that very closely. Some of the impacts from subsidence in our area are ones that you've seen elsewhere around the world. Near Baytown, Texas, where we had the first documented case of subsidence, linking that to subsidence and compaction and groundwater withdrawal, actually shallow fluid withdrawal at the Goose Creek oil field near Baytown. Many of you may have heard about Hurricane Harvey that we had in our area back in 2017. Pretty big deal for us. Widespread flooding. Flooding is a big concern and part of the reason why we were created in 1975. The Brownwood subdivision near Baytown is a great example of, well, maybe great probably isn't the right word, but it's an example of what subsidence can do to an area. It was a upper income executive subdivision of really nice homes that is now since been abandoned as part of that retreat away from the impacts of subsidence, and now is a nature area. So a lot of really good information out there on the internet if you're interested in learning more about those areas. So how do we go about doing this? Well, we regulate groundwater withdrawal, and we started in 1975 with an area near the coast. So you're looking at Harris and Galveston County in the state of Texas. To your right there in those little maps is the Gulf of Mexico. We're in the southern part of the United States. And in 75, we just basically said in these areas near the coast, you need to convert from groundwater as fast as you can. Get off of groundwater. Fortunately, in those areas, they had plenty of infrastructure and alternative supplies available to them, and they were able to make that conversion rather quickly. Over the years, we developed other regulatory areas based on development and population growth, and those areas were given conversion requirements that were based on the timing of available alternative waters and their expected population growth. And it got really complex. In 1985, we had 8 different regulatory areas. In fact, some parts of Harris County still we didn't plan on them needing to have any regulations in those areas. In 1999, and then reaffirmed by our board of directors in 2013, we settled on 3 regulatory areas, and that's the way we have it now, 1, 2, and 3. And in those areas, we regulate based on your total water demand and how much a percentage of groundwater based on your total water demand. So for example, in area 1, whatever your total water demand is, you can utilize 10% groundwater as your source water. The rest of your water has to come from another source. So if your water demand changes, up or down, then your amount of groundwater that you can utilize to stay compliant with the regulatory plan changes. So so area 1, we're at 10%. You look at area 2, they're at 20% now. They're fully converted, those 2 areas. Area 3, which is our area of rapid growth, largest amount of groundwater, 80% municipal supply, accounts for 80% of our total groundwater use in the district. They're going through that conversion process. So it's in this area where a lot of investments going in for infrastructure, and also where we're currently seeing most of our active subsidence occur. So keep this little map in your mind. Areas 1 and 2, we've gone through full conversion, and you'll see later on that where we've been fully converted, subsidence rates are really low, and in areas where we've are going through that conversion, subsidence rates are still moving forward. Now we do have a game plan for area 3. We're working through, they converted to 70% groundwater in 2010. In 2025, they'll go to 40%, so that's just around the corner. Like we can see the finish line on that one coming down the road. And then in 2035, they'll go to 20%. So we got this plan together. We've developed this plan over many years, but we have to track it and make sure that our plan is going to get us to where we want to get to, which is to prevent subsidence in the future. So we collect all kinds of data. Water use data is probably the most important data set that we collect. We collect water level data with our partners at the U.S. Geological Survey. We look at working with our academic partners at the University of Houston and SMU. We monitor subsidence with the GNSS network and INSAR. And we just recently worked with the U.S. National Geodetic Survey and the Conrad Blucher Institute to survey actual benchmarks in the area. So a wide variety of data sets, all available on our website if you're interested in looking at that. So here's how our subsidence field has looked over the years. This is a combination of data from 1906 to 2000. It's a combination of benchmark relevels, a releveling of benchmarks, and some GNSS data from our GPS network. And you can see, I mean, the darker the colors, the more subsidence, lighter the colors, the less. That darkest color there is about 10 to 11 feet of subsidence. So you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of about 3 meters or so. And you can see that a lot of we have 2 major areas. The area to the east and the regulatory area 1 and, yeah, cool, 1 and 1. And then we have an area out here in this developing area here we call Jersey Village, which is just northwest of Houston, where we see about 7 feet here and about 10 to 12 feet in this area on the ship channel near Baytown. I don't know what happened here. Got back. All right, we're good. Want to make sure you guys are paying attention. All right. So we wrap all this stuff up annually in our annual groundwater report. We do this on an annual basis. We have a hearing coming up next week. So if you're bored and you have some time in the middle of the night, which is probably be for you, probably, click on that QR code, go take a look at it. You'll see the most up-to-date information that we have on the subsidence in our area. To give you an idea of what our regulatory plan has done, though, to water use, this graph does a really good job of telling the story. So really the two big components here is the magnitude of those bars and that blue number, the blue color on the bottom. So that blue color on the bottom is the groundwater used in Harris and Galveston County, so within our district, since we were created in 1975. That number has gone down from about 400 million gallons a day to about 200 million gallons a day, or about 750 cubic meters per day. So drastic reduction, almost in half for our groundwater use, where our total water demand has increased from about 750 million gallons a day to 1 billion gallons a day or thereabouts. So water use gone up, groundwater use has gone down, and when you look at that and compare that to where our water levels have gone over the years, you see the same story. In those areas, again here, warmer colors are water level decline from 1977 to 2021, and then blue colors are water level rises. So in the areas where we've seen full conversion, in that eastern area, area 1 and 2, water levels have come up. Areas where they're still using groundwater as their primary source water, water levels have gone down. The magnitude there is, about 100 meters or so. So a lot of water level loss in some of those areas to the north and west of Houston. So we work with, like I mentioned before, a lot of different folks to collect the data that we use for our network. We have university partners, we have federal partners, local partners, state partners, all collecting data to help us better understand the issues that we're dealing with. And here's the current subsidence rates based on our GPS and GNSS data set. These data are collected through cooperation with the University of Houston and Dr. Bob Long and his group. And what you can see here in these areas, these open circles here are areas that are less than 5 millimeters per year. That's what we've kind of worked our way to do in these annual rate assessments. That's what we're looking at as that background value, looking to keep sure that our network, we feel like if we're doing a good job, our network, we see a bunch of open, empty, black circles. That's good. But when we look out to the west and northern parts of Houston, this is where groundwater is still the primary source water. This is also where we're seeing the highest subsidence rates. So those rates range from a centimeter up to 2.5 centimeters per year. And that big dark area out here, that's about 2.5 centimeters per year out there. So that area is working to get surface water in place, and they're doing a lot of infrastructure development to do that, and they have a timeline within our regulatory plan to get that done. This is what that looks like over time at one of our sites. This is a site in Jersey Village you mentioned earlier, and you can kind of pick out through the rates over the years. So we use a 5-year, an average annual subsidence rate over a 5-year period. Take 5 years of data, run a linear regression through it, and that's our annual rate. And you can see here at Jersey Village that for the longest period of time, they were typically about 4 centimeters per year. And then as they began to change their water management practices in the area of that well field, as they began to convert some of that water away to surface water, you see those rates came down, have now kind of stabilized just beneath 2 centimeters per year, gotten as low as 1 centimeter per year in 2014, but there's some oscillation there. And this area will continue to convert from groundwater to surface water over the next 15 years. Thank you. So as we move forward, we've utilized all this information and develop and evaluate our regulatory plan. So we've developed new models with the U.S. Geological Survey using ModFlow 6 and the latest subsidence package. We use our census data, which in America is collected every 10 years, to develop population projections moving forward. And all this information is wrapped up into our regulatory plan assessment, and then dictates how we modify our regulatory plan, how we modify those percentages to make sure that we can address our mission objectives in the future. Here's an example of the population change in our area. As you might imagine, Houston and Texas, we spread out, not up, and population continues to grow. It's the 4th largest city in the United States. Some of the infrastructure being developed. This is a 96-inch raw water intake pipe. There's 2 of those coming off of Lake Houston that'll feed the northern and western parts of Harris County. And here's an example of the construction going on at the City of Houston plant. They're increasing the capacity of this plant from 80 million gallons a day to 400 million gallons a day as part of this project. $5 billion of infrastructure. And a conveyance line that runs all the way across northern parts of Harris County all the way into Fort Bend County as part of that effort. The last thing I wanted to mention is that we spend a lot of time talking about water conservation. It's one of the most important things that we have to impact water availability in our area. And as we talk to folks about this, we develop ways for folks to utilize water better at their homes with irrigation. We have a website called Smarter About Water. I encourage you all to take a look at that. We've even developed grants to help folks do water conservation projects in their backyard that are relevant to their local area. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Big construction works I see coming up for you.
A lot of dirt being moved.
Yeah. Questions?
Mike, is there any flexibility built into those percentages in cases of drought?
Yeah. Yeah, so we actually have a program. Having a fixed regulatory position is difficult for anybody to attain because there's things that you can't count on, right? You can't count on what climate's going to do. You can't count on what's going to happen to your water supply line or the cost of chemicals or any of those things. So we have a system by which folks can earn and trade and utilize groundwater credits. And there's different types of flavors of those. The two primary ones are water conservation credits. So entities can promote water conservation through our program, and we'll give them a groundwater credit they can use to offset our regulatory requirement. Or they can overconvert 1 year, earn credits, and then use those overconversion credits later on. And the idea behind that is that they've put their overconversion has been a plus, so we'll allow them to use that plus later on if they need to, and if they have to deal with it, something like that going on. Our district, as a regulatory agency, we only have one way to really incentivize compliance, and it's through a disincentive permit fee. So our regular permit fee is, with money. Yeah, I mean, that's how people do stuff. So $26 per million gallons is our normal regulatory fee. But if you can't comply with a regulatory plan, either by your own choice or by circumstance, then that fee goes up to what this year is $11.78 per thousand. $10.78 per thousand, yeah.
Yes, and a secret question sitting behind the pole. Hey, great presentation, and I really like the website of your institute. It's a tip for everybody. Check the website, and I really like this GPS viewer that you also showed here in the presentation. And you have this concentration of these red dots, right? So where the substance rate is the highest. Yeah. But when I zoom in the topographical map, then I also see let's say in the toponyms. KT oil and gas field in the vicinity of these red dots. So yeah. I was thinking, isn't this hydrocarbon related substance superimposed on aquifer depletion?
Yeah, so we do have some isolated areas where there is oil and gas operations going on. The area near Katy that you're talking about, we're almost certain that is entirely municipal supply driven. But there's an area over in Mont Belvieu, which is over to the eastern side of Harris County. And then an area near Channelview. Both of those areas have isolated areas of oil and gas going on that may be contributing to some of the movement that we're seeing through the INSAR analysis. One of the challenges that we have is that our jurisdiction lives inside of the realm of groundwater use. So we don't have any jurisdiction over oil and gas withdrawal, but we do work closely with the agency in Texas that oversees that to make sure they understand those impacts. Yeah, but thank you for asking that. It's a good question.
Okay, thank you. See one more question.
Thanks for your talk. It seemed like the southeast region had a huge recovery starting in the 70s. And I was curious if that was just due to natural inflow into the Kona Depression or if there were recharge efforts. And as you think about that in the Northwest, and projecting out future subsidence, does that go into it, like how much you project it to recover as they decrease their pumping?
Yes, that's a good question. So in the area over there to the east, that's all repressurization through regional flow. Like there hasn't been any artificial injection of water back into this system. It's they've tried it, and there's some complicated factors with our geochemistry that allow them to be able to do that. We do expect water levels to stabilize and come up on the western side. The declines on the east were dramatic. I mean, the declines were much greater than we see right now in the west. So how much we'll see come up from the west, our modelers will be working on that right now as we went through those scenarios. But we do expect the same thing to occur, but we don't expect the springs to come back that were up in that area anytime soon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turco.